the apple isn't ultimately real. It's as real as the apple that you see in your dream. And that's why we use the word awakening. We awaken from the virtual reality, in a sense, awaken from the dream. And it doesn't mean the dream stops. The dream looks the same. The VR images still go just the same. It doesn't mean somebody's unplugged it, or it doesn't mean, and this is really important, it doesn't mean that somebody's switched I don't know how VR headsets work, but it doesn't mean that someone switched the jump drive and put in only a really happy story, right? And everything's perfect in the new VR image. It doesn't mean that either. That's the egoic mind would like to believe that, once I realize truth, I'll be happy forever and everything will be perfect. Again, a story from the egoic mind. So nothing stops. Nothing is different. You just see through the illusion of it. It's just this is simply this is just being constructed in the mind. Everything that's happening. It's real because I'm experiencing it, and it's important, and there's still responsibility because people are all still really experiencing this. But it's not real in that it's an illusion. But many of the people, I'll say the majority of the people that I see in the world are even more engaged in the world. So it's just what spontaneously appears as the next thing to do. It's just what happens. It's just what manifests. I don't know why. I don't. Yeah. It's just what happens. Yeah. Oh, Om raised his hand. Where are you, Om? Oh, there you are. Okay. Hey.
Is somewhat confused about it. Yes, there is no reality, or it is just our perception. But living in this world, when you see actual things happening, wars happening, people killing each other, uh, natural catastrophes, you see all that one. Is that real? Yes, okay, one gets very, it's right word, philosophical or not. Uh, it is just happening. Probably when I get attached to it with my ego and create an opinion that the war is happening, people are being killed, but they are. So that's what is very confusing. Is it real or it is not real? I don't know.
just going back to the original title of the talk, nothing is real, everything is real. And what that's pointing to, and just to back up a step or two, I actually did a talk called "Nothing is Real," and I posted it before I went away from our son's wedding. And then I was reflecting on it. I thought, oh, but everything's real at the same time. So this talk is really kind of a 2-week reflection on how to how to teach this this subject. So everything is real from the point of view of it's being experienced. So it's real. So to dismiss it simply creates this kind of outlook of hopelessness or nihilism, as I said before, that nothing matters. Right? So the illusion is real. The wars are real. The injustice is real. From the point of view of the individual, the person, the personal self. It's very real, and that's why people get involved in social change and so on. Working in environmental sustainability and so on. From the point of view of consciousness, because that's all there is, so ultimately, none of it's real. It's simply constructions in the mind. And even once you've realized that, it doesn't mean that you stop working in the world for social justice and environmental change, because that is real as it's being experienced, right? So it's this. I'll have to do another talk to kind of follow up how this virtual reality is really also a manifestation of consciousness. So it's also important, even though it's a virtual reality. The dream and metaphor kind of loses its. I don't know how folks dream. Some people have lucid dreams. When I'm at a meditation retreat, I often have lucid dreams, where it's more like more like the virtual reality of life, and that you know that you're dreaming, and you know that there's consequences for actions in the dream. So it's not a just kind of wild abandon, which some dreams can be in the dream world. The waking world is quite different from that, but it has as much. I guess the metaphor is used because it has as much reality to it. It's illusory, but it's still very real to the individual. Therefore, it's important how we act and behave in that virtual world. Does that make sense? Yeah. And this is because it's all consciousness. It's all divine, it's all God. It's all spirit, whatever the word we want to use. It's the one, the absolute. So many words. It's all part of that. So nothing is not unimportant. And in fact, I really do think that when realization occurs, there's an increased sense of personal responsibility in the world. It sounds very strange, right? You realize that it's all an illusion, but there's more responsibility towards how you behave within that illusion because you know it's all part of consciousness manifesting. It's not to be, it's divine. It's not to be taken for granted or lightly. It's all very, very, it's meaningful in that way as well. That's the other thing you hear. I guess you could call them radical non-dualists. I don't want to label people with that, but this kind of, there's some non-dual that nothing matters because it's all an illusion, right? You might hear that statement. No, everything matters, even though it's an illusion. The illusory part of it is that something is there, but what we think is there is not what is there. But there's still something there. I hope you get that point too. The pigeon that sees 4 dimensions sees a completely different world. It's not what is, it's not the reality. No species conceives and perceives the world as it is. We simply perceive and conceive of the world in the way in which our senses and our neurons reconstruct what's coming in as information. Right? So it doesn't make it real. It's real. It's just illusory. It's not the way. It's not what is actually there. I mean, if you can come away with one thing from this talk, it's that our assumption that we conceive and perceive the world as it is a false assumption. It's a misinterpretation. Just as much as the misconception that the world is flat.
Do you mean to say that what we see, as I mentioned, the wars and killing and everything, yes, we see that it's happening. But when I start attaching myself to those things, that's when it is not real. When I am apart from this thing, apart from what is happening, I observe it, yes. That is probably the reality. But when I start attaching myself to it, that is unreal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but the attachment and identification is part of the selfing, the reconstituting of the notion of a separate, independent self. Because we believe that not only the reality out there is as we see it, but we believe that we, our bodies, minds, is as we see it. I hold up my hand, I see, oh, there's a hand. I think that what I'm seeing through the visual sense door is the reality. I forget what percentage of our brain in human beings is used for sight. It's a huge percentage. But very, very, so let's say it's a third. It might not be that much, or a quarter. let's say it's a quarter of our brain is used for, or I think it's actually a third of the prefrontal cortex is used for vision. A very, very small part of that is used to receive the image. We have, I think, 130 pixel cameras as eyes, right? To put into kind of computer jargon. We have basically an image capturing device called eyes. Very little of the visual vision capacity is used for capturing the image. Most of it's used for reconstituting what is drawn in as an image. So creating a reality out of that, creating the reality of a hand and all the connections to memories and words and all these other associations. So a lot of our brain capacity is actually used for constructing reality. And we're reality constructors.